What we will be discussing or trying to discuss is the relationship between AppSec, data security, cloud security, and AI. So quite the task I've given you there, Yoav. But before we get into it, are you okay just to give the audience a little bit of an introduction to yourself, mate, if that's okay?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. So, hey everyone, thanks for joining. My name is Yoav Cohen. I'm the co-founder and CTO of a company called Satori Cyber, and we help companies secure sensitive data in the cloud. It's not always have been cybersecurity for me. I started my career back in the early 2000s in a company called SAP. I think a very well-known global brand in the field of business applications. I was mostly involved in integrating different types of applications together into what was then called the enterprise portal, which is a really cool concept where you can bring multiple applications on the same screen, have them talk to each other, and really help users streamline their experience and business processes. And I spent about 5 years at SAP in different roles as an engineer and as a manager. But then I really wanted to feel like how does it feel to work across the entire tech stack of a product? When you work at a big company, you usually have your own area where you do your work, and there's you have your stakeholders, you have your platforms that support you, and it's a bit limited in your horizon of what you can deal with from a technical perspective. So I really wanted to get into a smaller company, and that's how I found a company called Incapsula, which was a spin out of a bigger company called Imperva, which we will touch on in a second. So Incapsula was in the business of moving application security into the cloud. We built a web application firewall and a very, very good DDoS mitigation service. And I led some of the engineering teams there, and eventually led the entire engineering team. We then got acquired back by Imperva, which was a really fun experience to suddenly move from this small company into this larger company. Obviously not SAP, but a couple of thousand employees. You have your publicly traded company also. So that was a really cool experience, seeing us move and become a very significant business unit within Imperva. I ended up, together with my co-founder now, Eldad, I ended up joining the Imperva management team. I think that was late 2017, leading engineering for the company. Eldad, my current co-founder, led product management for the company. And later on, we sold the company to a private equity firm. And that's where we started Satori once we left Imperva. So really, not starting from cybersecurity, but then was able to touch application security. I saw the move from applications from on-prem to the cloud. I saw the move from rich-based UIs in Flex to HTML5. I saw the move from some data or just enough data to big data. There were many technology shifts throughout my career, and reflecting back on it is super interesting.
Absolutely. And I think now the audience will understand why we've chosen the topic that we have chosen. But yeah, no, just before we do get into it, talk to me about the interaction that you had with Eldad when you were like, are we going to do this? Are we going to go and create Satori? What actually happened? Was it just one day where you was like, should we do this? Is there a gap in the market? Should we go for it? Or was this built up over maybe several years where you were flirting around with the idea?
So these types of things, it's always something that percolates in your mind and in your desire. I think one of the reasons I moved from SAP, which is a great company with really great people that I love, and into a smaller company, is because I wanted to see whether whether I have it in me to be able to, start my own company and do my own thing. So I think being an entrepreneur was always something that I wanted to try, and that's from my own personal experience. When it comes to why we actually went in and found Satori, while we were at Imperva, and definitely we were able to address, as Imperva via Incapsula and other acquisitions they made, Imperva was really able to capitalize on the move of applications from the on-prem data center to the cloud.
Mm.
But around 2018, 2019, a very big shift of moving data to the cloud started. And we initially saw it with AWS RDS. At the time, RDS was the fastest adopted AWS service because people suddenly realized that, I used to have all these databases that I had to manage. I had to manage databases. I I had my share of outages and production issues and so on. So we always had to manage databases on our own. Suddenly, AWS is taking that away from us, and they're doing that work for us. They take care of the backups, the restoration, they take care of scalability. That was amazing. And I really think that the cloud is just the best place for your data because you get that, insane scalability. You don't have to worry about upfront costs and all of that. See what Snowflake has done to the industry, the analytics industry. So we started seeing this shift of databases and data as a whole to the cloud. And that's where we thought, okay, this is a very interesting time in the market for us to get into it. In addition, when I was at Incapsula, I got exposed to proxy-based technologies.
Mm.
And for me, a lot of the motivation was technical. I wanted to see what happens if I take a proxy and put it in front of a database. And you can do a lot of things with a proxy. And people don't realize how valuable proxies are in anything we do online.
Yeah.
Anything we do online go through like, I don't know, a handful of proxies at the minimum. So proxies are really powerful because they see everything that's going on. They can understand everything that's going on between, different agents within the network.
Mm.
And I really wanted to see what we can do with a proxy. So we had some ideas around maybe we can use a proxy for reliability purposes. One database goes down, we fail over to another database, or for monitoring, which is part of what we do with Satori. We ended up going with the the security use cases because they were the most important, most urgent
Mm.
for companies moving their data to the cloud. Because the first thing that you have to answer when you want to do that kind of a shift is, okay, how are you going to secure that?
Yep.
And that's where we saw these, the gap in the market, and that's why we decided to focus on these use cases.
Nice, nice. No, I'm always really sort of curious as to where ideas come from for all these basically these early stage cybersecurity vendors that are doing some amazing work at the time because it's really interesting space. Cool. Okay, so let's delve into a little bit of the topic then. So, just to remind the audience again, we will be discussing the relationship between AppSec, DataSec, cloud security, and AI. But I'm not going to throw you down the rabbit hole straight away and just ask you to answer that in one. But so, what's the relationship between application security and data security to start off with?
So when you think about it, any system is comprised of both the data that it has and the application on top of it. Otherwise, it's completely inert, right? There's no point in accessing an application that's empty. There's no point in having some data without something on top of it. And when people think about applications, they think about online services, think about consumer-facing stuff, but even, a BI tool generating reports on top of data, that's also some sort of an application. There is one important relation between the applications and the data is that applications are one of the ways that you can get into the data. At the end of the day, what hackers are interested in, they're interested in the data, right? Yet we did see in the past 10 years a rise in attacks that are targeted at disrupting your operations, disrupting specifically your applications, and that's what we dealt with Encapsula and Imperva and DDoS mitigation. But I feel like that's a a unique type of threat. Many, if not almost all of the attacks we see in the cyberspace are targeted at acquiring data,
Yep.
because acquiring data, you go on and you sell that data, and you make money out of it. It's an entire economy. So
Data is
applications are
currency,
used
isn't it?
to, yeah. So applications are one channel for folks to get access to the data. Obviously, you can access data in other ways. Employees can access data. We have stories about, things we've heard about employees getting offers to, for a lot of money to exfiltrate data from financial institutions, all sorts of things like that. So yeah, I would say applications are, for hackers, the easiest way to get to the data, because applications are publicly facing and so on. The databases are usually closed up, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud. But they're still closed up behind firewalls, behind all those perimeters.
Yeah. And then obviously we're bringing cloud security, as most applications, like I say, most applications are hosted nowadays with the cloud. So obviously, is that the only link between application security and cloud security? Is that applications just to sit on the cloud, and therefore application security in the cloud is pivotal, because if they penetrate that, they can get into the cloud, and then they can also then in turn access the data from there. Is that how we bring cloud security into that, or am I being too naive and it's a little bit bigger than that?
So cloud security is super important in that mix, because the cloud offers organizations, a lot of flexibility, a lot of scale, but also a lot of complexity,
Mm,
because of the myriad of services that it offers and the way engineering teams like to adopt the latest and greatest.
yeah,
I think the cloud contributes to, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but that's the impact. It contributes to the complexity
yeah,
of applications and technical landscapes today.
yeah,
The typical Satori customer has like hundreds of databases with hundreds of microservices, which are basically applications, right?
yeah,
Supporting larger applications. These are very complex environments, and when you have more complexity, there's more chance for you to get things wrong, to misconfigure things, to keep things open, not to have the latest patch deployed across your environment, because there's more of it and it's more complex. And that's why cloud security tools today are really essential
mm,
for organizations to keep their cloud hygiene high, and make sure they don't have any backdoor that's left open.
yeah, yeah. And then obviously then we start bringing in sort of, I know that you mentioned obviously during your time with Encapsula and Imperva that you did, like, a hell of a lot of work with sort of, the cloud and applications. And obviously nowadays when we look at cloud security, there's a lot of data that's stored on the cloud. So then we start bringing in encryption packages that sort of sit on the cloud that protect the data. How important is cloud security when it comes to the storing of data? Because like you say, there's loads of potential in terms of scalability, but is there also a massive chance of breaches as well with it all sitting on the cloud?
Um, so yeah, unfortunately, it does. I think we see it. No, I don't have the statistics, but I think we all feel it. Recently, there was a very big campaign against one of the big data providers,
Yeah.
which try to abuse weak passwords in and obtaining access to to data in in an online SaaS-based data warehouse, and many companies got impacted by that. So definitely, and when we started out, by the way, what CISOs told us is they told us, these big cloud-based data warehouses, data lakes, they're great, but they are also an aggregation point of sensitive data. It's all stored in that one place, and that one place is no longer locked up in my data center somewhere. It's owned by someone else. And now there's a shared responsibility model, as we know, between the customer and the vendor. The vendor will do its best to provide all the tools to secure the data, secure access, will have the best infrastructure in place, but it's up to the customer to use it correctly. I can go into AWS now, put some sensitive data in an S3 bucket and open it to everyone. It will get scanned in like 10 seconds and downloaded. It's amazing how fast these things happen. So yes, the cloud as a public, at the end of the day, it's a shared resource. It's inherently more vulnerable. Even though I would say the cloud providers really compensate for that because they have the best security teams in the world. They're, working on improving the security of their systems. They're pushing for higher standards from their customers. So they are moving the industry forward. But yeah, inherently, if you're a irresponsible customer or a user or an admin, definitely you can really shoot yourself in the foot with the cloud.
Absolutely. So we've obviously got this security triad going on now with application security, cloud security, and data security. As we talk now in October of 2024, how is AI impacting this security triad? What's your thoughts on that, Yoav?
Yeah, so I think AI it has a huge impact on data security specifically because of how companies manage data security today. I'm very concerned about companies adopting AI technologies, for my online services, because most of them are executing on data security programs that are really not a good fit for their current environment. And I'll explain. Basically, what you want to do with data security, I think is pretty simple. First of all, you want to maintain compliance with any regulation, that you have to, like GDPR, CCPA, whatever jurisdiction you operate in or you have customers in. There are certain rules and laws that you have to adhere to. You have to maintain compliance with your contractual requirements, right? Let's say if I have this contract with a company that says that they cannot use my data to train their AI models, I expect them to really adhere to that, right? So there are contractual requirements around what you can do with data and specifically with AI. And third, companies just have to constantly work on reducing the risk of a data breach. Now it sounds simple, but if you think about the number of online services that you and me and everyone else use for just our day-to-day, our investing, our, payment applications, transportation, healthcare, whatever, there is a ton of our sensitive data that is stored by all of these companies. They have really, very lean security teams. These are not your huge banks that can afford to have a lot of controls on data because they can move slower than anyone else. These companies cannot move slower than anyone else. They have to move much faster than anyone else. So they have the business drive to use that data to build new services, to build new offers, to optimize their businesses. And some of these companies, their entire data model, their entire business model is based on using data better. Think about the next generation insurance companies that can offer you, better premiums because they think they can predict, your risk better based on your data and so on. So when these companies start adopting AI, it means that, first of all, most of them are using more third-party services because most of these companies are not hosting LLMs within their environment because it's very expensive and it's very hard to operate. They're using third-party vendors. So they're using more third-party vendors.
Yeah.
They're using new types of databases that which are called vector databases. Some of them don't have the controls that you would expect to secure data properly. And that's always the case, by the way. There's a new type of workload in the industry. There's a new database vendor. They have to focus on how they deliver best on the price performance point for that specific workload that they were founded on to solve. But then security is like, okay, that's year 5, year 6, year 10. You see it all the time. It's always price performance, and then for the workload, and then security. So AI is not just, okay, I'm going to use another technique to build a better feature. Is I'm going to use a new tech stack that is completely new, doesn't have the security around it, and is also very hard to introspect, understand, debug, secure. It's this, opaque thing that you put something into it, you get something out of it. It's inconsistent inherently. You give it the same prompt, it answers back in a different way. And so there are many ways for hackers to take advantage of that, and we've seen prompt injection attacks, jailbreaking, these types of things. So yeah, AI is not it's not an incremental added risk. I think it's an order of magnitude added risk that we're not yet fully we don't yet fully understand.
So to surmise from that, would you say that the cons outweigh the pros? Is that what you're saying, Yoav?
I will never say that because I do believe in progress. I think that the solution is to not try to use yesterday's methodologies to protect today's technology. And that's what happened with applications moving to the cloud. That's what happened with data moving to the cloud, right? In the on-prem world, you can install a database agent, which is this, plugin that you put inside your database that hooks into the database process, and it can control it from the inside and do all sorts of interesting things there. That's not something you can do on the cloud, right? No, you cannot tell Snowflake, oh, put this agent on my database, please. It's not going to happen, not even with AWS, not even with anyone. So the security or the technology powering security solutions has to adapt itself to the cloud. And that's why I think a lot of companies today are using outdated data security solutions and practices. There's an outdated, mindset that needs to be updated to think about how can we deal with all of that complexity now. It's not a 3-year program. If you're using AI services in your product today, in your online service today, that's a now concern. That's not okay, let's build a data security program that, we have a 3-year plan. Most CISOs don't last 3 years in their role, by the way. So you never get to year 3. You never get to that last step of actually doing something productive about it. Companies keep getting stuck, at the beginning of their data security program. Then another CISO comes in, evaluates what's going on, kicks off a data security program, and then you get stuck on first phase again.
Yeah.
So I am concerned, but I think there's a way for companies to move forward.
Absolutely. Terrific point. Really terrific point. We're nearly at the end of our time already, and I feel like we've only just scratched the surface, so this might need a part two. But to change course a little, I always like to finish with the same question. And like you say, we get a lot of founders of early stage vendors that come on here, lots of CISOs, lots of sort of thought leaders in the space. Now, with yourself being the first and obviously being the founder of Satori Cyber, I just want to ask the question, if you sort of had a bit of a time machine and you could go back pretty much 5 years to the date before you started with Satori, what advice would you give to yourself before, starting in this world, whether it be a soft skill of like, look, business is business, personal is personal, take your time, whatever it might be, or something that might be a little bit more technical. What advice would you give to Yoav 5 years ago?
Wow, that's a great question. Someone told me that I always look up when I'm thinking, so yeah. I think it's you really have to surround yourself not just with the best, team from a professional perspective. You also want to surround yourself with people who are optimistic, fun, upbeat,
Yep.
because these are the people that you will work with day in and day out. These are the people that will pick you up when you're down, or you'll have to pick up when you're down. Honestly, I feel fortunate with our team.
Yep.
We've been working together even before Satori with most of them. So,
Oh, no, absolutely.
but I think that's a really good advice for anyone. And if I can think of something more practical or come up with something more practical, I would say really honing on your message.
Okay.
Um, why am I doing this? Who is it going to help? What is the critical need that they need solving?
Mm.
I think that, and that's also advice I give to other entrepreneurs who are in the beginning of their journey. Just spend time, take it slow at the beginning. I think that's maybe an advice would give my younger self. Take it slow, take a few weeks, take a few months. I know there's always pressure, especially when you get funded, to
Yep.
move as fast as you can. Just make sure that you're moving in, the exact direction that you want to move, and always keep testing your hypothesis and listening and adjusting as needed.
Perfect. What a great point to finish on. So, if anybody has any questions for Yoav or would like to learn more about what Satori do, I'll be sure to put all the information down below. But once again, Yoav, thank you very much for coming on the Scooter Space podcast.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for having me.